All right. Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about how your company can support your journey to CTA. My name is Andy Oganoff, and I'm a Director of Technical Architecture at Accenture. Before I get started, I'd like to do a quick show of hands. How many of you are customer architects? So you're not working with a partner today? Okay, a couple? And I'm assuming everybody else is working with a partner. How many of you have your system architect and application architect certifications already? Good chunk of them. Fantastic. Steve Harrod has his. And how many of you are CTAs? Already CTAs? One. OK. Fantastic. So what we're going to, just a little bit more background on myself. As I mentioned, I work for Accenture. I lead our North America technology architecture practice for Salesforce. And I also lead our CTA Elevate program, which is a global program that I will talk more about in this presentation. I've been in the Salesforce world for a long time, 14 years. We got my CTA back in 2015, MVP since 2011, and part of the Midwest Dream and Planning team as well. Damn. So what I'd like to start with is talk a little bit about the journey to CTA. There's a lot of sessions going on here about the trail guide to your path to CTA. I'm going to boil this down very, very succinctly and just say that it's experience plus certifications plus more experience plus practice. So one of the things that gets overlooked quite a bit in this space is the need to have real-world experience. This is unlike any other certification that Salesforce has, where you can't just cram for it. You can't just go do multiple choice tests and think you're going to be a CTA. In order to even be ready to take the CTA, you have to take a number of domain designer certifications. There are some optional certifications to take. Highly recommend doing that. There's a prep workshop that I'll talk about in a little bit. And then the review board itself, which is almost like defending your dissertation in front of a group of other CTAs. Those are the kind of the logistics of getting your CTA. The thing that we don't talk as often about that I think we need to is the fact that you absolutely have to have real-world project experience, business acumen, a very deep technical background, as well as a very wide technical background. So you need to have more than just Salesforce to be successful in this space. And then one of the key areas that I run into all the time is communication skills. You need to be able to communicate at every level of the organization, because one day you might be talking to a CIO, and the next day you might be talking to an offshore developer trying to debug a trigger. So it's across the board, communication skills is a very, very important aspect of the CTA process. And this is a number that Salesforce actually recommends, 8+ years of experience. This is in Salesforce. So you can come into the Salesforce world from an enterprise architecture background, maybe coming from SAP or Oracle, Siebel, but you're really going to need a lot of Salesforce experience to be successful in this particular space. So what are some of the ways that your company can help you on this journey? Obviously, one of them is financial sponsorship. And I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details, because everybody has different prices for certifications. But suffice to say, you're going to be paying thousands of dollars to go on this journey, whether that's through the multiple choice exams for domain designers to the big one, the review board, which is thousands of dollars just to sit for your first attempt. So financial sponsorship is a really big aspect, but it's not the only thing. If you work for a consulting company, getting different project experience is a little bit easier than if you're on the customer architect side. Customers tend to be in a single project working with the same people over and over. In consulting, it's a little bit easier to get some of the experiences that you might need across industries, across the clouds, across products. So there is a little bit of an advantage there, but I think you can also get that project experience within a single customer if it's big enough. For a small customer, it might be difficult to get the necessary experience to really be successful here. Technical training. I mean, we're all here at TDX, so obviously your companies believe in technical training, but it goes beyond just Salesforce training. So other areas that you can your company can work with you on is adjacent technologies, so integration technologies, ERPs. It could be any kind of technical training that might be JavaScript, right? We're in LWC and Lightning Component land right now. So any kind of adjacent technical training is going to be critical, and your company can support you in that way too. Mentorship, if you're in a consulting company and you have other Salesforce people on your team, you can look to them, especially if you have a CTA on your team, you can look to them for mentorship. If you don't have access to a CTA within your own company, you can work with some of the community groups. I see Susanna's out here with Ladies Be Architects. It's a great opportunity to get involved, and your company can help support that by giving you the time away to do that kind of work. Another often overlooked area is team collaboration. If you can get with your team members that might be wanting to go on this journey as well, forming small study groups, having the ability to bounce ideas off of each other is a really good way to work together through this. CTA is also more than just I'm working in the code all day long, right? It's project management, it's governance, it's stakeholder management, it's DevOps, it's security, it's all across the board. So if you can have the opportunity to play a lot of different roles on projects, it actually will help you in your journey to CTA as well. And if you can work with your company, your leadership, to focus on what are the things that I can stretch myself to. I might be a developer today, but maybe I want to try helping out the project manager or working with an existing architect to try out something that I am not comfortable with. Another area is non-technical training. This is really critical because I get into conversations a lot with senior developers that are kind of moving into that architecture space, and they think I'm the best developer on my team, and therefore I'm ready to go. Well, to go on this journey of CTA, you really need to have those communication skills and those soft skills to be working with all the different flavors of stakeholder that you might be working with. So getting executive exposure, doing things like public speaking like this is a great opportunity to hone your skills because they're going to be critical for your path to CTA. So how do you sell it? Because it's expensive, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time. Sometimes it can take years before somebody is ready for sitting for the review board for the first time. And the way I would sell it to your boss and the way that I sold it to my boss was that the CTA is really it's a credential that lends instant credibility. The ability to walk into a room, have a conversation with a customer, have a conversation with Salesforce, knowing that you're a CTA, they know what it takes in this ecosystem to get through this process. It's kind of a badge of honor, and it helps to build credibility and build that path to trusted advisor much more quickly than if you didn't have it. It also has a halo effect. So if you're working with a CTA and your company has invested in you to become a CTA, there is an expectation that there are others underneath you working towards that same goal or working towards building their technical repertoire as well. So just having a CTA actually has a halo effect. Risk mitigation, there's an expectation that if you are a CTA, you've pretty much seen it and done it. So on large projects especially, it's very useful to have a CTA involved because it de-risks the overall implementation. That's especially important for very large customers and for consulting companies. From a personal and team development perspective, sometimes you look at some of the certifications that Salesforce has and you're just checking a box, right? You're going through and it's hard the first time you learn it, but maybe it's not something you use every day, and so the knowledge kind of leaves your brain. With the CTA path, that knowledge is something that you'll use every day. So as an example, you're not just learning how to pass an exam when you're going through the journey to CTA. You're learning how to apply those skills in the real world. I can say from experience, being able to open up an RFP or look at a customer requirement and be able to solution on the fly, respond to objections, be able to synthesize requirements very, very quickly is something that you learn through this process. And then it's also a competitive advantage. Especially if you're on the consulting side, having more CTAs is a competitive advantage in the marketplace because customers are asking to have CTAs as part of RFPs now. So it's definitely worth the effort to your boss to get you to go through this process. I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes talking about how Accenture has done this. We're going to give you a sneak peek into the program that we've put together to support our candidates going through this journey to CTA. We call it CTA Elevate. It's for internal employees only. So you can take this and see how we do it, apply what makes sense for you, or come talk to me afterwards. You can come work for us. From a goals perspective, we planned this program specifically to help the architects in our practice fulfill their potential as Salesforce architects, not necessarily train them from scratch to be an architect. So there's an expectation that you already have some experience. We're going to work with you to hone those skills, and we're going to help you get through this path going forward. Part of that is assisting with filling knowledge gaps and experiences. So as I mentioned before, your company can help you do this by getting you involved in different projects. So as I mentioned, part of what I do as a leader in North America, I work with my team to get them on projects that are going to fill in gaps. If they don't have a ton of experience with SSO, maybe I'm going to pair them up with an architect that does and have them on a project helping out so they can get that real-world experience. That's a critical piece of this program. Also providing a strong support network. So knowing that there are others in your situation that are going through this process and learning as they go, working their way through the domain designer exams, working their way towards that review board, just having that strong support network is critical. Internally at Accenture, we have quite a few people going through this, and I'll show you some stats here in just a second. If you're not in a company that has this kind of a program, there are lots of community groups that are spinning up to work through this. So I mentioned Ladies Be Architects previously. And that's another way that you can get that strong support network. It's a global program that we have, but we do support regional candidates a little bit differently. So we've got CTAs all over the world, and we all operate under this one program, but we may do things a little bit differently depending on geography. So like in the US, we do a lot more virtual things because everybody's spread out all over the country, whereas in the UK, they're all in the London office, so it's a lot easier to do things in person. And obviously, we want to grow our CTAs. For all the reasons I mentioned before, it's a way to differentiate yourself in the market, both from an individual perspective as well as from a company perspective. And our leadership has recognized that having CTAs on staff is something that we want to invest in, and we've done so heavily. Some of the ways, before I get into some of the ways, from a stats perspective, we currently have 15 certified technical architects. A good chunk of them have gone through this program at one time or another. And once they're through it, they are now mentors and helping the next group go through it. Our first female CTA, Lynette Lim, I don't know if Lynette's in the building right now, but Lynette passed in 2018. We were super excited about that. There she is. And we have a number of female candidates in the pipeline as well that we're working to get through. Obviously, Ladies Be Architects, again, I'm going to keep giving you shout outs, but it's been a fantastic partnership there. We currently have 61 candidates that have application architect and system architect certifications globally. So that means we are to the point where we are scaling this program to support that number to prepare for the review boards. We still have a whole number of, I think we have about 120 people that are currently working through the process of getting through the application architect and system architect credentials. But now we're to the point with these candidates that we're working through the review board prep. And the way we do that is like this. We use virtual tools for doing the domain architect support because there is just so many people and so many certifications to go through. So we use virtual collaboration tools. As I mentioned, we've got 120 or so members in this group. All 15 of our CTAs are in there helping answer questions. They post up challenges, and we respond to them, and they can form small groups based on that as well. And then we also, in the US, and I believe we do it in Australia as well, technical lunch and learns. So we have each of the members pick a topic, could be CDC, could be SSO, could be composite API, whatever it is. And every other week, we have them present for half an hour, and then we post up the recordings and have a conversation about it in our team groups. And then obviously, we rely heavily on, for the domain level certifications, we rely heavily on the architect trail mixes that Salesforce puts out. But one of the things that we are heavily investing in, Accenture just got my Trailhead licenses for everybody. So we are going to be retooling this to use publicly available architect trail mix content and mix in our own content for both from a technical perspective as well as for soft skills, because the CTA is so much more than just technical. From a review board perspective, we take it to the next level. We have, as I mentioned, leadership support globally, all the way up to our CTO for this program. We will assign you, once you get past your application architect and system architect, we assign you a one-on-one CTA mentor. It's a little bit easier when you have more CTA, so as the program scales, we'll be able to do more and more of this. And we walk through everything from tips and tricks for time management and handling objections to doing mock reviews. And then the way we normally do it in the US is have people start with a process, start with mock scenarios that are kind of easier so you can figure out what your strategy is going to be versus trying to figure out all the technical stuff that goes into your review board presentation, and then gradually get more and more complex. And once you're through that, then we start bringing in other CTAs and other candidates that are going to act as judges for you as we go through this process. And we're also big proponents of the CTA 601 workshop. That is a public workshop that Salesforce teaches. I'm one of the teachers, actually. We've got a number of CTAs that teach that for Salesforce. Those are public. Anybody that has the prerequisites can, I believe it's first come, first serve, but you have to talk to Suzanne to see about when the next one is scheduled. And it's meant to give you an opportunity to network with other candidates that are going through this process outside of your company, as well as work through mock scenarios and get tips and tricks from CTAs. Usually there's one or two CTAs that are leading these workshops. We, as Accenture, have taken that and gone to another level. We call it our CTA Elevate workshop, which is similar to the external CTA 601. And we do this internally, and we do this around the world. We've done it in Nashville, we've done it in Chicago, Sydney, London, and I just got back from Hyderabad doing this 2-day workshop. This is a picture from one of our workshops in Nashville. We actually, in that room, there are 175 Salesforce certifications. So that's a huge advantage to preparing for these certs, having people that have gone through it and can help with whatever kind of problem you might have. The workshop that we do follows this structure. On day one, it's basically lecture and group exercises where we're working through what to expect from the exam, what are the objectives that you're trying to achieve, what does a scenario look like? So how do you decompose all of the requirements that you might face? Then we walk through the key diagrams, like your system landscape, your ERDs, SSO flows, role hierarchy, et cetera. And then we work through practice exams, smaller practice exams for the presentation and the Q&A period. On day two, we use what we learned on day one to do a full mock scenario. So we use a real scenario from Salesforce, and all of the candidates will solution it. We'll put you under exam conditions, so you get 2 hours to solution it. Can't ask questions. You only get the materials that you get during the actual boards. And then, depending on time, we'll usually have 2 or 3 people present their solutions, and the others will act as judges as we go through this. This has been hugely successful. We've done it a bunch of times. I know there's a bunch of people in the audience from my team that have gone through this process. So if you have questions about it afterwards, come up and talk to me. I just wanted to close with this quote because I thought it was pretty good. And it reflects what I think is important about the CTA process. It's not about just getting a certification. the learning is never going to stop. Once you become a CTA, it doesn't mean you know everything. It doesn't mean that you're the top technical person necessarily on a project. What it does mean is that you've demonstrated your expertise to a level that Salesforce is confident that you could tackle pretty much any problem on the Salesforce platform. And more importantly, it helps drive excitement in your daily work. So this was a quote from one of the team members that I had go through the workshop that we had, and I thought it was pretty fitting for this audience. So with that, I think I'm at time, and thank you. If you'd like to talk about CTA, whether that's the Accenture program, CTA in general, feel free to come up and talk to me. I'll be doing one-on-one consultations in the Architect Lounge tomorrow, and I know we have a bunch of our CTAs here today doing presentations, et cetera. So definitely feel free to come up and have a conversation. Thank you.